This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Hello, I'm your host Samia Mohammed for this hour's news. Let's start from African health financing. Africa's investment in health is critically insufficient, with a particular need to bolster the often overlooked area of surgical health and its entire supporting ecosystem, says Dr. Stephen Okello, a representative of the College of Anesthesiologists of East, Central and Southern Africa. It's clear that you cannot achieve anything unless you are healthy, unless you're alive, he stated, and urged that health is the precursor to all other development, enabling citizens to pursue education, infrastructure development, business and commerce, he said.
One of the challenges in Africa for health is our investment in health is not where it should be. It's true, it's clear that you cannot achieve anything unless you're healthy, unless you're alive. Once people are healthy and they're alive, they can do everything else. They can go to school, they can build the roads, you can do business and commerce. So I think health should be given a priority by African governments in terms of investment.
Dr. Okello emphasized that Africa remains far from adequately funding surgical care. He clarified that necessary investment extends well beyond the operating room itself. It encompasses the entire infrastructure and ecosystem of surgery. He explained, highlighting key elements, hospital facilities and equipment, training for surgeons, anesthesiologists, nurses, and biomedical technicians, and research tailored to the African context. Dr. Okello highlighted the severe economic consequences of underinvestment in this sector, stressing the critical need for intra-African collaboration to boost funding. He urged African nations to share experiences and learn from one another's regional success.
And African countries need also to talk to one another and share experiences. What has happened in the Western Africa or East or North, South, Central, and everywhere. How do we learn from each other and make it better for us? We cannot take something that probably worked in Europe or America and think that the same thing is going to work in Africa. It may not. So we need to think internally, even as we get support from the West.
Algeria has officially opened an embassy in Bratislava, marking a new stage in Slovak-Algerian relation. Slovak Deputy Foreign Minister Marek S. Stok received Algeria's first ambassador to Slovakia, Habiba Deraji Horor, on Tuesday. The move follows Slovakia's reopening of its embassy in Algiers after 20 years. Stok said the step confirms the renewal of traditionally friendly ties and open new opportunities for cooperation. Both countries plan more high-level visits this year, focusing on trade, energy and security. Mozambique has launched a technical commission for the resizing of conservation areas in mid-October to balance biodiversity protection with community development. The commission, with one-year mandate, will survey existing areas, resolve overlaps with human activities, and propose new boundaries and management categories for government approval. Conservation zones span over 25% of the country, including 19 national parks, reserves, and 20 hunting areas, and it will conduct public consultations and monitor the process. Mozambique's Conservation Agency Director General noted a shift from combating illegal resource exploitation a decade ago to now sharing conservation's benefits with locals.
This is Africa, the cradle of humanity, the frontier of the future, a land of visionaries, creators and pioneers, a continent of unstoppable energy where innovation meets tradition, where voices rise, loud and fearless.
I am an African.
This is the heartbeat of a billion people, diverse, bold, united by a single purpose to tell our own stories in our own way. No borders, no barriers, no filters. A new era of African storytelling is here. From every corner of the continent, from the bustling cities to the quiet village, we tell Africa's story by Africans for the world. This is the land of a rising Africa, where Africa speaks and the world listens. This is why today we bring you POA, Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Kodal Minerals has officially opened the Stage 1 Bougouni lithium project in southern Mali, inaugurated by President General Assimi Goïta. The ceremony, hosted by Governor General Osman Wele, welcomed the Minister of Mines, Professor Amadou Keita, community leaders and media. Speeches were delivered by Minister Keita and David Tank, Chairman of Kodal Mining, UK, and CEO of Hainan Mining. Dignitaries toured the Densa Media Separation Plant, where President Goïta unveiled the inauguration plaque. CEO Bernard Aylward praised the strong government and community support, noting that village chief of Nogolona calling it the greatest day for its village. Delivered on time and within the $65 million budget in partnership with Hainan, the project employs 650 staff, 95% Malian. Targeting 125,000 tons of lithium, Stage 1 will boost Mali's economy, with Stage 2 planning underway to nearly double output. Zambia deposited the instrument of accession at the World Customs Organization in Brussels, Belgium, formally joining the International Convention. The ATA carnet is a critical tool, often called the passport for goods, which will enable Zambian business to temporarily export items to international trade fairs and other trade exhibitions without paying customs duties or taxes. Zambia's ambassador to the Kingdom of Belgium and ambassador designate to Netherlands, Luxembourg, as well as the permanent representative to the European Union, Mary Cherwa, deposited the instrument to WCO through the Secretary General Ian Sanders at the organization headquarters. The landmark achievement realized under President Hakainde Hichilema's New Dawn government does not only open up new doors to trade, but provides direct commitment to enhancing trade facilitation and promoting Zambian products on the global stage. President John Dramani Mahama has announced that Ghana's new Solar for Industries project will play a central role in the driving government 24-hour economy initiative and boosting industrial growth. Speaking at the SOD cutting ceremony for the multi-purpose solar energy project, President Mahama said the new facility will deliver clean, stable and affordable electricity to power manufacturing and export zones across the country. He explained that the initiative forms part of the government's broader plan to extend access to renewable energy and promote sustainable industrialization under the National Renewable Energy Master Plan. The project, he noted, is expected to help Ghana achieve a renewable energy share of at least 15% in the national energy mix. The solar industry project, powered by PAC Solar, in partnership with Quam Investment, the International Finance Corporation, and with technical cooperation from the EPC contractors, who are Chinese, marks a significant shift toward renewable industrial energy, President Mahama said.
The Solar for Industries project, developed by PAC Solar in partnership with Quam Investments, the International Finance Corporation, and with technical cooperation from the EPC contractors, who are Chinese, marks a significant shift towards renewable industrial energy. This facility will produce clean, stable, and affordable electricity dedicated to Ghana's manufacturing and export zones. And this is the core of our 24-hour economy and industrial recovery program.
According to the President, the project will provide dedicated power to key production areas, supporting the government's strategy to keep industries running around the clock. This facility will produce clean, stable and affordable electricity dedicated to Ghana's manufacturing and export zones, and this is the core of our 24-hour economy and our industrial recovery program, he stated. Congo Republic is in talks with European partners for a possible debt for nature swap, the country's finance minister told Reuters on Wednesday. Speaking from Belém, Brazil, where he is attending the COP30 conference, Christian Yoko said the swap would be part of the country's plan to make its debt more sustainable. He said the government was in talks with partners who would be able to provide credit enhancements, but that the potential size of any swap was not yet clear. He said the debt for nature swap resonates clearly due to the Congo's basin, which spans 6 countries and hosts the world's second largest tropical rainforest. The African Development Bank Group has approved €217.37 million in additional funding for the multinational Busega, Bigi, and Katimba Kazunza Rusumo Roads project, boosting Uganda-Rwanda connectivity. The funds will build interchanges, bridges, toll plazas, and service lanes, including the Busega interchange linking to the Northern Bypass. This addresses congestion on the Kampala-Kigali Northern Corridor, plus land compensation and capacity building for Uganda's Ministry of Works and Transport. The 27.3-kilometer Busega-Mpigi Expressway will cut travel time from over 2 hours to less than 45 minutes, benefiting over 1 million residents with better market and service access. Total Uganda section cost rises to €424.61 million, with AFDB providing €217.37 million and Uganda's €30.98 million. Additions include 7 bridges and 54-kilometer drainage channels. The project will create 1,200 jobs and empower local women via entrepreneurship. This is the lifeline for a trading community, said Principal Transport Engineer George Makjuma. Construction resumes January 2026 and in December 2029, full completion 2030. Now let's check the current weather forecast. Thanks for tuning in, and goodbye until next hour's news program.
Elections in Africa face unique and intensified challenges such as violence, weak institutions, voter alienation, corruption, and social divisions. These issues are often worsened by historical conflicts, economic hardships, and social complexities, making credible and inclusive elections more difficult. Understanding these hurdles is essential for improving democratic processes across the continent. Hello and welcome. I'm Gamachisa Mandida with Zelalem Ibeltal, and in today's roundup, we'll discuss elections in Africa. Stay tuned. Zelalem.
Hello, Gamit.
Yeah, I'm good. Today we discuss elections in Africa. Well, we know elections in general is a very umbrella term that you cannot, define or explain, just within this particular session. But we just chose, to pick this topic because this particular period of time, is a time where elections take place in the African continent, and of course interesting election processes have been taking place in different countries in Africa, and the outcome of these elections suggests that African elections have varied responses from people. Some say well, African democracy is of course emerging, and some others say the opposite, which is African elections are accompanied by just a variety of challenges that need to be addressed as soon as possible. So Zelalem, I would like you to tell us what we expect from African elections, the trends in African elections so far, and what really is new, especially in recent days, in recent months, in recent years, as far as elections in the African continent are concerned.
Yes, Gamit. The issue of election, the issue of democracy, and the whole issue of governance is very critical to Africa. In fact, to get rid of poverty and to propel economic growth and to satisfy the demand of the society, African government needs to embrace the significance of election and needs to conduct free, fair, and periodic election. That's very much critical. But as you said, there are different reactions with regards to election being held here in Africa. I would say we need to see election trends in Africa in a balanced way. I mean, there are positive developments in African election, and of course there are limitations in drawbacks and flaws to African elections. But we have to see also the positive sides, and we need to be a little bit optimistic to Africa's election, and because we have seen, we have witnessed the positive momentum in African election history. In 2024, for example, we have seen that 19 countries of Africa have conducted elections successfully. 19 countries in Africa, and additionally in 2025 10 countries are going to conduct their election. So by the end of 2025 we're going to have 29 elections. That means more than half of African countries have conducted election by the end of 2025. This is a positive trend, I would say. I mean, there are limitations, and of course, I will come to those limitations and challenges and drawbacks of African election later in roundup discussion. But we can definitely say that there are positive developments in African election. And more than this, we have also seen free, fair, and democratic election. I mean, there is no perfect election elsewhere in the world, be it in America or Europe or Asia. There is no perfect election. But there are trials of fair and democratic election in Africa. For example, in the southern part of Africa, in Botswana, we have seen a fair and democratic election. You know, in particular in Botswana, there was one entrenched party, a dominant party in Botswana politics. I mean, after Botswana got its independence from British in 1966, there was only one dominant and entrenched party called Botswana Democratic Party, and that party stayed in power in Botswana politics for more than 5 decades, for 58 years. And it was never been challenged. But in 2024 election, that party has been successfully challenged in a peaceful and a democratic way, in a fair election. And that party has been successfully changed. And a new party has come to Rwandan politics. And those entrenched parties in Africa are being challenged. Another example is in Southern Africa. They are in South Africa. You know, in South Africa, you know, the political history of South Africa is very much connected to African National Congress. In fact, African National Congress is a party that struggled to liberate the people of South Africa from that repressive administration of apartheid. But once African National Congress Party came into power in 1994, you know, it was not challenged. You know, African National Congress stayed as a dominant and entrenched party in South Africa politics. But recently, African National Congress has been challenged. And that entrenched party, dominant party, has been challenged. And African National Congress, in fact, has been forced to establish a coalition government. So politics in South Africa has become a multi-party system. So South Africa has entered to that multi-party system through peaceful and through fair and democratic elections. So we can say that there are positive developments in African election history, but we shouldn't undermine the limitations and the challenges of African election. In fact, election in Africa is defined by you know, undemocratic nature of elections, and I will come back to the limitations and challenges later in our discussion.
Yes, Zelalem, you've said it very well. Of course, African countries are realizing the need to have, you know, democratic procedures or processes in their respective countries. African countries are engaging in democratic processes, and they are appreciating, you know, just the outcome of elections, and they're conducting, you know, elections in their respective countries. And we have, you know, the observation of, you know, just these more election practices, in many African countries, which is, a very good thing. Yeah. So, of course, the very question that we need to ask is, why do we need elections? And when we see it, from the African perspective, having, elections has multifaceted, benefits for African countries and their citizens. Of course, the first one is promoting regional cooperation in Africa. Well, when you have elections and when you have, leaders elected, democratically, and there is, a tendency of stability in these countries, and that, of course, will create a chance or the opportunity to have, cooperation between these countries, okay? And that is, a very important thing. The other one is, you invite, more citizens, to engage in political decision-making practices. And this is very good thing, again, because citizens will have a chance to decide on their lives, on what they share, for example, economically, to have, just the pie, the share of the pie, okay? Yeah. So this is also very important. Because when citizens, decide who is holding, political positions as a result of, enjoying these democratic processes or engaging in elections, then they will have, leaders that work, just for the people, for citizens. So you empower, African citizens as well. Of course, you fight corruption through elections, because in the very nature of election, we have one thing, which is transparency. Anything that you do is transparent, and democratically elected leaders will ensure that, the system uses or utilizes, practices that are transparent. So when political decisions are made, they ensure that, they are democratically based. Yeah. So, of course, obviously, just this will drive economic growth for African countries as well, because political stability, by its very nature, will invite in, economic activities. For example, we have, foreign direct investment. Investors, just they want to invest only in countries where there is, a stable political activity, where the country is, economically stable, politically stable, socially stable. So, of course, this will allow, just countries to grow economically. The other one is, of course, enhancing social cohesion, or the kind of, relationship between, countries will grow, obviously, because of the outcome of, just democratic elections. Democratic elections, by their very nature, invite, as we said earlier, economic integration, economic stability, which also will have, positive impact on economic development. And so citizens of different countries, can come together, they can engage in trade, they can engage in development activities. And for this and that, for multifaceted reasons, elections are important for African countries. You may add.
Yes, I think you have interestingly elaborated the issue, the significance and benefits of conducting election for Africa. There is a general consensus across the world that democracy is the most effective way of governance. Yeah, so election is one pillar, one critical pillar of democracy. As the late President of the United States of America, Abraham Lincoln, said, democracy is a form of government by the people and for the people. So that phrase, by the people, highlighted and indicated the idea that leaders should come from the people. Leaders should be elected by the people. And that highlighted the issue of election, the significance of election. People need to ascend to power through election by the will of the people. So that's critically important. Election will engage the mass use as well. For example, in Africa, more than half of the population in Africa is below the age of 35. So it will involve and participate the youth in a democratic process through election. And election is very much important to build trust between and among peoples of a different ethnic group, religious group. There are lots of diversities in Africa. So to keep that cohesion and to build upon trust between and among peoples of Africa, election is critically important. The significance of election can never be overestimated. It's critically important for Africa and for any country across the world. But there are limitations to elections in Africa.
Of course.
Yeah. So
a series of challenges,
yeah,
a series of gaps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have, different kinds of challenges,
mm-hmm,
problems that arise from various factors,
mm-hmm,
of course. You may tell
yes,
us some of them.
we can see the limitations and drawbacks of election in Africa from three sides, I think. Firstly, there are countries in Africa which never conduct election. For example, the Eastern African country, Eritrea, has never conducted election in its history. I mean, after Eritrea seceded and separated from Ethiopia in 1993, there was one president, and after 30 years, the people of Eritrea are looking the same face. The president is there, the old guards are there. There is no change because there has never been a single election in Eritrean soil. So there are countries in Africa which are not conducting election. That is a major problem in Africa. The other problem is there are post-election violences in Africa. Of course, the aftermath of African elections are defined by post-election violence. We have been witnessing enormous chaos and violence and conflicts and civil war in Africa, in particular after election. So election is becoming a problem for Africa. I mean, African countries are not managing election. I mean, election is a very good thing. A very good product. I mean, it needs a fertile ground. It needs a fertile soil to prosper. So we have to manage it properly. The election being conducted in Africa are becoming source of conflict and source of division in Africa. So that is a critical problem in Africa. For example, recently we have observed election violence in Tanzania, in Cameroon, in Central Africa, and in many parts of Africa, we are witnessing post-election violences. And this has to be managed. This has to be managed. Post-election violence is generally a problem in Africa. The other critical problem in Africa election is, leaders are ascending to power without elections through coup d'etat. And we have seen this particularly in western part of Africa, in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and many other Western African countries and out of Western African countries are witnessing, are looking such kind of problem, coup d'etat. And, people, leaders should come to power through election, through a democratic process in a peaceful manner. There should be a peaceful transition of power. Otherwise, stability will be far from African countries. To ensure stability, those leaders should come from their people. Otherwise, the bridge between the people and the government and the leader will be broken. So there are lots of problems with regards to election in Africa, but the major limitations with regards to election in Africa are these three problems, I would say.
Yes, Zelalem, by the way, these factors you mentioned now are huge challenges that need to be addressed as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will kill, African nations. And why is it that African countries, have failed to address, these challenges? Because these challenges are not new, they're not unknown to people. People know them, governments know them. Well, it's complicated, and I think, for instance, we have, a variety of interests by different groups in African countries. So, political powers or political entities, say parties, they're selfish and they don't want to give away, just their power to the opposition. This happens, for a variety of reasons again. For example, there are no competent or dominant institutions that allow this to happen. So if a leader, goes undemocratic, if they want to maintain, just their power without having, this electoral permission or permission, from the election process, then there must be, an institution that will remove, just this person or this leader from power. We don't have, such institutions. The institutions don't stand by themselves. They are rather, the creations of, the respective governments in the African continent. So since, the ruling parties or the governments, own them or have created them, they don't have, their say. And as a result, they can't put, pressure on the ruling party or on the incumbent to avoid power and then give away to the opposition, even after democratic elections have taken place, which confirm the opposition has won. So this is a big challenge. Unfortunately, the outcome of this electoral violence and conflict is so devastating that we have people killed.
Yeah.
We have huge property damage in millions, and even in some cases in billions. So these countries find it very difficult to recover from the loss.
We need to ask why there is violence and chaos after election in Africa, and that needs answer. So the thing is, there is violence because those oppositions, those who are deemed defeated, do not accept the election result. Why they do not accept the election result is basically because the election in Africa are not fair and democratic. I mean, the outcome of election, the result of election is very much measured and evaluated by the process of the election. If the process of the election is not fair and democratic, the outcome of the election will never ever be accepted by the contenders. So we need to make sure that the election held in Africa are fair and democratic. But as you said, there are recommendations, there are solutions to problems of election in Africa. We need to improve election in Africa, and there are recommendations. Let me begin by stating the significance of strengthening institutions in Africa. It is imperative for African governments, for Africans, to build strong institutions. To conduct fair and democratic election. For example, you need to have independent and neutral election commission, electoral board. You have to establish, you have to organize election board, election commission in a very professional and independent way. So those election commission should never serve the ruling party, people in power, but the election commission needs to serve election, needs to help those countries make credible, fair and democratic election. That's very much critical. For example, African governments need to build and strengthen institutions such as police force and security forces. And those security apparatus shouldn't serve the ruling party, shouldn't serve people in power, but they should, make sure that the election is conducted peacefully, and they should serve all political parties in equal and in fair manner. And judicial system and other institutions in Africa needs to be strengthened. So strengthening the institution is very much critical to conduct fair and democratic election. Africa does not need strong men. Africa in fact needs strong institutions. And the other is we need to also build civil societies, and those civil societies should be organized in a professional way, in a neutral way. I mean, the ruling parties and the other political parties should not intervene in civil societies. And we have seen how civil societies function in countries like Kenya, Ghana, and Senegal. Civil societies in those countries have been able to change laws, change bills, reform institutions. They have done enormous, incredible things So civil societies needs to be built and needs to be strengthened, and civil societies needs to be allowed to function and to operate in a neutral way, in in an independent way. The independence of civil societies should not be negotiated.
Yes, Zelalem, but excuse me, you remind me of one point, which is institutions. The implications of institutions for ensuring democratic processes in Africa. Well, these institutions can do, a lot of things at a time, which ensure democratic processes to take place, in Africa. For instance, the incumbent and the opposition, after they fight, in the election process, of course, one of them is the winner. It is
obvious.
It's obvious. And so, if the incumbent is to lose, then is there a safe exit? Okay. Many African leaders or African parties in general, if you approach them and explain them, why they are so stuck to maintaining their power. One thing that I suspect and that I happen to gain insight of is that they fear the consequence of losing power. So many African leaders, after elections take place, and if they happen to lose it, then the repercussion is so huge that it's unbearable. Even it is life-threatening. So African countries need to have institutions that ensure safe exit for incumbent leaders who might lose power after election. So if one loses elections, and then they must be provided with a safe exit, so that they also become kind of
part of the democratic process.
Part of the democratic process. They'll play their role to ensure that that democratic process happens in a peaceful manner. So if I fear that the election outcome would hurt me, would make me lose my life, would make me lose everything that I have, then I might not be playing the kind of role you expect me. I may be doing my best to oppose, and then to ensure that I still remain in my power. So this is one of the homework for institutions in Africa. So the other one is, of course, generally speaking, we can say a list of things to suggest, as a solution for these challenges. But in general, Africa is, even though there are still, challenges, it is doing very well in some cases, as far as, democratic processes are concerned. In some countries, as you mentioned earlier, we have, close to democratic, elections. The processes are democratic, and we see winners coming out in a manner that is peaceful, and this has to be encouraged by African countries in general.
Yes. I think we need to give some recommendations on ways of fostering and building election in Africa, and we have been mentioning the significance of strengthening institutions, democratic institutions, and we have also highlighted the significance of building civil societies, strengthening civil societies, and to conduct a credible, fair and democratic election. We should also get rid of tribalism and ethnic politics in Africa. In fact, such divisions, ethnic politics, religious divisions, and tribalism are killing African politics, killing African election, and they are the major hurdles and obstacles for a democratic system in Africa. I remember some few years ago, I conducted an exclusive interview with the current president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, in 2019, I think. Back then he was chairperson of Ghana Forum. Ghana Forum is a continental organization established to bring African solution to African problem. What I'm trying to say is John Dramani Mahama was chairperson of Ghana Forum in 2019, and now he is president of the Republic of Ghana. And in my interview with John Dramani Mahama, I raised a critical question and asked why we are witnessing such civil wars and conflicts across Africa, and he responded, we are not conducting a fair and democratic election. We know that Ghana has a good practice in terms of democratic system and in terms of conducting fair election. Relatively, Ghana is the most stable country in the West Africa. So John Dramani Mahama said, we are not conducting fair and democratic election. That is the problem. And those election and democratic process in Africa is hampered by those tribalism problems and ethnic divisions, ethnic politics and religious division. And Africa needs to get rid of such fault lines. These are fault lines that are, pulling Africa's democracy, Africa's election back. So we need to give focus and attention to manage ethnic politics, religious division. In many parts of Africa, political parties are organized along ethnic lines, along religious lines, along tribalism. And African politics should get out of such a kind of chaos, and to get out of cycle of conflict and cycle of civil war. We need to get out of such kind of ethnic politics and religious division. That's critical problem in Africa. He said, let me add the saying of John Dramani Mahama. He said, African politicians, African officials, manipulate ethnic politics. For example, he said, those ethnic differences, religious difference should be cherished in African politics, in African governance, but they shouldn't take the front and center stage of African politics. That is the real problem that we are witnessing today.
Yeah, I think here inclusive political dialogue is
critical.
Is a critical point. It plays, its unique role, and it serves as a solution to the challenge that you mentioned now. Tribalism, ethnic groupings in Africa are prevalent. They are, what we observe, especially these days. But we need to understand that, they are part and parcel of societies, and they cannot, leave the society as soon as we want them. They live with society. They have existed for quite too long amongst, societies, African societies, communities, citizens, etc. And they are, part of our culture. We can't avoid them, but countries need to find, a way to establish, a national unity through political dialogue, emphasizing shared national identity.
Exactly.
This is, a very important point. Of course, scholars, political scientists, they suggest the implementation of decentralized governance and power-sharing arrangements that respect ethnic and regional diversity, and reducing the incentive for divisive politics. Well, I think, Dalalam, time limits us here. And if it was not for this limitation, I wish we could have extended our conversation. Thank you, Zalala.
Thank you.
Viewers, thank you for watching our today's roundup, which ends right here. Next time we'll come up with another edition. Until then, goodbye.